society cannot be rationally understood until it is seen for what it is. A series of farms where human farmers own human livestock. This human farming has been the most profitable and destructive occupation throughout history.
Ideas spread, they can't stop them. An idea whose time has come cannot be stopped by any army or any government.
Persistence is not futile. We're gonna win this thing. Humankind is too good. We're not a bunch of underachievers. We're gonna stand up and we're gonna be human beings. We're gonna get fired up about the real things, the things that matter. Creativity and the dynamic human spirit that refuses to submit.
Our nation is drifting dangerously from freedom to fascism. So I have to ask, is it time?
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for staying with us. We've got our guest on the line that I know you've all been waiting for, Mr. Richard Gage. And for anybody who doesn't know, Richard Gage is a San Francisco Bay architect and member of the American Institute of Architects. He is a founding member of Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth, and he has been an architect for over 24 years and has worked on most types of building construction, including numerous fireproof steel frame buildings. Most recently, he's worked for the construction documents for a $400 million mixed-use urban project with 1.2 million square feet of retail parking structure and 320 square foot of mid-rise office buildings, altogether with about 1,200 tons of steel framing. Richard Gage, it is great to have you with us. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Michael. Great to be here with you.
And on a personal note, I just wanted to, take this opportunity to say to thank you for all your work that you've done. Like I said, on a personal note, in 2004 or 5-ish, I was 15 years old, and 9/11 is what woke me up to a lot of the path that I'm on now, to broadcasting this show, to be involved in news and politics in general. So I just want to say thank you for putting a lot of that work out there to kind of put me on this path.
You're very, very welcome. It's my honor to help with the 9/11 Truth movement and make it a force in American culture. We've got to wake people up.
Absolutely, that's the whole point here. So, to kind of get things started, what is some of the main points that Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth works on to wake people up to 9/11 Truth?
Well, we now have 2,000 architects and engineers, 2,000 architects and engineers calling for an independent investigation into the destruction of all 3 World Trade Center towers on 9/11. And the reason is because we have not been given all the information. In fact, we've been given fraudulent reports from NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, who was tasked with explaining the destruction of all 3 of these high-rises to the American people. But they did not explain them at all, and they covered up most of the evidence, which leads to the explosive, controlled demolition of all 3 high-rises. And I'm looking forward to sharing that information with your audience today.
Well, you have the floor. Go ahead and get started. If I would just say, what would you say are the 3 biggest key points that have come out of your research that blows the official story of 9/11 wide open?
Well, the most obvious to most people is the destruction of World Trade Center 7, a 47-story skyscraper that on the afternoon of 9/11, about 5:20 in the afternoon, drops like a rock, virtually straight down, uniformly, suddenly into its own footprint and at free fall acceleration. This can only happen if all 80 columns on each of at least 8 floors are cut synchronistically timed floor by floor. Normal office fires does not do this. They do not do that. They are an organic process, and of course normal office fires are blamed for the destruction of this building, which falls in the exact manner of a classic controlled demolition. We have witnesses that hear explosions. We have first responders that see molten metal flowing like lava. Turns out to be molten iron. This is extraordinary because it takes much hotter temperatures than normal office fires, like 3 times these temperatures, to create this material. It's created by an incendiary called thermite. Thermite is used by the military to cut through steel like a hot knife through butter. So you can begin to see why we need a real investigation that acknowledges the evidence that was indeed found early on by investigators, official investigators, like the U.S. Geological Survey, that found also in all the World Trade Center dust samples they tested billions of small iron microspheres, previously molten iron. This is incredible evidence in and of itself, found by officials and completely denied then by NIST in their final reports.
So I know a lot of people. I'm very familiar with the thermite argument. I know there's a lot of people that when you hear that, they get turned off. What kind of evidence exists to suggest that thermite was used other than the microspheres?
Well, not only it turns me on actually, and most people who understand that even jet fuel and office fires themselves cannot even come up to about a third the temperature required to melt iron or steel. And yet we have molten iron and steel flowing like lava also in the basements of these towers, and even the World Trade Center structural engineer himself, Leslie Robertson, sees molten iron flowing like lava. This is extraordinary. There's also found in all the World Trade Center dust small chips, red-gray chips of very curious substance. It turns out to be nanothermite, which is a very sophisticated form of thermite found only in the most advanced defense contracting laboratories where it's made there. So we have a huge problem with this. This is in a 25-page peer-reviewed report on the Bentham Open Chemical Physics Journal, because a small team of scientists led by Niels Harrit in Copenhagen find this material in all 4 independently collected samples that they have analyzed themselves. But the real evidence is in the videos. What we're told is we have jet plane impacts, of course, but then we have a gravitational collapse initiated by the weakening of the steel by the jet fuel started fires. And then this upper block, in the case of the North Tower, 12 or so stories, drives the rest of the building down to the ground. Well, there's several problems with this official story. One, the videos don't show anything driving anything down to the ground. After 4 seconds, this upper story is completely destroyed in a manner similar to the destruction of Building 7, a controlled demolition. After that, there's nothing left to drive in the rest of the building down to the ground. It is tearing itself apart in a massive series of explosions that are ejecting laterally 4-ton perimeter steel sections at 60 miles an hour laterally, landing 600 feet away from each of these towers in all directions in a uniform symmetrical display, almost like mushroom clouds, because they're trailed by pyroclastic-like smoke clouds indicating the ends of these beams being destroyed with something like an incendiary. So this is very obvious when you just look at it. It doesn't even look like a collapse. It looks like a building exploding with the geometry of fireworks. And that is just shattering the structure from top to bottom in just a dozen seconds for each of these twin towers.
So a question I would have is, a lot of this information has been out since about 2005, 2006, when Loose Change come out, and what kind of information has come out more recently that kind of just adds to the whole big picture here?
Well, I don't think we need to be looking for additional information to add to the picture. The picture was actually fairly complete 2006, 2007 with the findings and documentation of this high-tech nanothermite material in the World Trade Center dust. What we've been doing since is putting it together in a DVD which we've created called 9/11 Explosive Evidence Experts Speak Out, where we have engaged 43 of our top petition signers, including high-rise architects, structural engineers, metallurgists, chemists, physicists, controlled demolitions experts themselves, and fire protection engineers, all laying out this evidence in their respective fields of expertise. It is an extraordinary, irrefutable display of technical expertise that just lays waste to the official story fraudulently promulgated by NIST.
And just so everyone knows, that is free to view on YouTube. I've seen it. It's very, very powerful, and it's like I said earlier in the show. You know, people tend to not believe things until you have people with suits and PhDs telling you it to your face, and that's exactly what you have in this video. It is experts, and you can go on YouTube and type in explosive evidence, the experts speak out. And another point that I want to emphasize that I feel doesn't get emphasized quite enough is that, like you said, that there is live, ready to go, ready to blow up thermite active still there in the dust. I mean, I know the Building 7 is the smoking gun and everything, but I feel like it doesn't get emphasized enough that there is actually live nanothermite in the dust, and that people don't realize that it's been peer reviewed. Can you just kind of give the name and for people to go and find their own for this?
You bet. If you Google active thermitic materials, you'll find it, especially if you put WTC and 9/11 there. It is in the Bentham Open Chemical Physics Journal. These small-grade chips are in turn composed of nanoparticles, 1,000 times smaller than a human hair diameter, of aluminum and iron oxide. These are the key ingredients of thermite. They should not be found in the World Trade Center dust. They are engineered from the atomic scale up, and then, which is extremely sophisticated. This is a process documented in Los Alamos lab and Lawrence Livermore lab prior to 9/11. They are in turn placed in a matrix, an organic matrix of oxygen, silica, and carbon, which can give it more explosive properties. Normally an incendiary works by massive heat, thus the molten metal that's produced when they're done. But this is engineered to become more explosive.
Now, I've got to give you a lot of credit because I have spent my week trying to bait skeptics to call into this show and try to challenge you, and I did not get much of a response. I think we have effectively slayed most of the skeptics. I know we got calls on the line, so I know I did have one question from a skeptic who was online, and basically they asserted that the buildings did not actually fall for free fall speed. They said they fell less than that. Now, from what I understand, it was basically negligible, the difference, but what would you have to say about that stance?
NIST acknowledges that World Trade Center 7 fell at free fall for a third of its 47-story fall, or its 7-second fall. This is extraordinary because that means not one column gave any resistance to that building's fall. Now, where did those columns go? There were 80 of them. In fact, there's 40,000 tons of structural steel, making damn sure that this building doesn't go anywhere. And yet, all 80 columns must have been removed virtually all at once and synchronistically timed on each of at least 8 floors to facilitate that period of time in free fall, acknowledged by NIST. In the case of the Twin Towers, they fell at 2/3 of free fall. They are accelerating straight down through the path of what should have been the greatest resistance, the hundreds of columns supporting that building, but which gave virtually no reaction or resistance.
And as we saw that they are all gone, but of course the kryptonite passports left behind by the alleged terrorists were there to be found. I want to start going to the phone lines here. Our first call is coming from Massachusetts. Are you there, Jeremy?
Yes, I am. Richard, I I've been going over a lot of these arguments with a lot of the debunkers lately, and it seems like we have them in a sort of a headlock since 2006, 2007, when we were coming out with a lot of this hard evidence of the red-gray chips and all the evidence for HTAs, or high-temperature accelerants, as they're called, thermite, visible within the forensic body of evidence. The many numerous reports of molten steel by the firefighters and FDNY, reports of fused metal and concrete, the Appendix C of the FEMA report, which shows like metal from World Trade Center 7, the only metal from World Trade Center 7 to undergo metallurgical testing that showed like holes burnt through it like Swiss cheese. All this evidence which points to high-temperature accelerant fires and high-temperature accelerant usage. And I've sort of, like, the way the arguments have gone to at this point is they can no longer rely on the explanation that molten steel was just melted aluminum from all the facade of the towers somehow just melted during the collapse, and that was just molten aluminum everywhere that all these people saw. And then they tried saying that the iron-rich microspheres were from paint chips, and they found a few tiny iron microspheres in some of these paint chip samples, but somehow they're suggesting that somehow during the collapse of the towers, all the paint somehow got scraped off the buildings, blown into the air, and then was found all over the ground with all these billions of iron-rich microspheres everywhere. So essentially, the arguments that they've come up with are entirely improbable and like just completely ridiculous. But at this point, I think it's important to adhere to the rules of science, and science is based on experiment. And I know A911 Truth has done a lot of excellent experiments to test the thermite hypothesis in the past. The great thermite debate video that's up with Jonathan Cole, where he shows that thermite can, in fact, melt through vertical steel columns and be used in demolitions. They found that Popular Mechanics article from the November 1935 issue, where they melted through the steel legs of the Skyride Tower in Chicago and successfully demolished that using thermite. But I think it would be important to pay attention to some of these patents for nanothermite demolition cutter charges, which were patented by a couple of different companies. We found two different patents that are of particular interest. One was from a company called Battelle, who specializes in nanotechnology, and they patented that nanothermite demolition device. And I would be interested in trying to do a Kickstarter project of some kind to get a hold of one of these and actually test it out on some steel beams and show what these things are capable of, so we can really put the final nail in the coffin of these pseudo-debunkers, or pseudo-skeptics, as I like to call them, because if they were real skeptics, they would see that this is the absolute truth instead of the infinite array of denial and excuses that they come up with to supplement for actual debunking. But anyways, I would like to know what your ideas were about those patents on nanothermite that exist. It's interesting that Battelle, one of the directors at Battelle, was a guy named Arden Beeman, and he is actually the director of NIST, who ran the cover-up or investigation, into the World Trade Center attacks and the collapse of those buildings. So I thought it was interesting that the same director sat on both of those companies that patented that one nanothermite demolition device, the cutter charge, and he also sat on the director of NIST, which managed the investigations and those reports into the World Trade Center.
So you would like to know what he thinks, what Mr. Gage thinks about these shape charges?
Yeah, I want to know what he thinks about doing some actual experiments with some of these, so we can sort of really put these debunkers in their place.
Yeah, we certainly do need to do that, Jeremy. I'm unaware, actually, of the patented cutter charges using nanothermite. I need you to send that information to me.
I'm not sure if it might be just regular thermite, but
yeah, I was aware of it. In 1984, there was a patented cutter charge for thermite, which is very interesting. It issues molten iron in millions, I think it's millions or thousands, hundreds of thousands of a second, something like that. Very much more effective, actually, than explosive charges, high-energy explosives like C4 or RDX. But the nanothermite that I'm familiar with, that is to say, that has been documented in this peer-reviewed paper, appears to be multi-layered. So it appears to have been applied in successive fluid applications, which leads me to believe that it was applied to the underside of the concrete floors, that is to say, the steel decking, which is completely missing, by the way, at the bottom of each of these twin piles of twin towers. The concrete is pulverized as well. So we are missing 110 floors at the bottom of each of these piles. There's only a 2-story pile of steel columns and other miscellaneous metals, which is very, very interesting. But if you're referring to that cutter charge, I've got that one. I also thought Patrick Gallagher was the director of NIST. Can you clarify that? Who is Arden Beeman, really?
That was from Kevin Ryan's paper, The Top 10 Connections Between NIST and Nanothermite. So that's what I was referring to with that.
Yeah, maybe maybe Patrick Gallagher came in later. I'm not sure.
But regardless, we still have the experiments to prove that thermite can, in fact, melt through vertical steel columns. And now it's about really trying to do some live experiments with this nanothermite stuff to show its capabilities and melting through beams as thick as the World Trade Center.
And I just want to put out there, you mentioned the video on YouTube, the Great Thermite Debate. I would recommend anybody who has not seen that, go in that. There's a guy, you know his name?
Jonathan
Cole. He put out an excellent video where he uses the examples that they tried to put out on National Geographic and then does what they did and then also debunks it and does it how it would properly be done and shows that it is very, very possible for this to be done. So I just wanted to throw that out there and recommend the Great Thermite Debate on YouTube for anybody who has not seen it.
Yeah, he does a great job.
All right, well, thank you, Jeremy, for your call. So I had another question for you, Mr. Gage. Another question I've seen when I was trying to bait these skeptics in that kept popping up from a lot of people is, what is your personal opinion on separate from speaking for architects and engineers, just what are your personal conclusions on what exactly happened here?
Well, what we know is that the evidence concludes inescapably to the reality that these 3 buildings were suffered a controlled demolition. Somebody got into these buildings to set pre-planted, they engineered these explosives. What we also know is that there is a company that had access to the core columns and beams in the towers through the elevator shafts, because they were modernizing the elevators in the Twin Towers the 9 months prior to 9/11. So we certainly want an investigation of Ace Elevator, who had this contract, which certainly would have given them such access. Beyond that, we don't know who's responsible for this perpetrating this operation. We know that they must have been somebody who had access to very high-tech military-grade nanothermite that had access to these towers. So we certainly want an investigation of the security companies, which I understand was Stratosec and Securicom, and they must have had some kind of motive. We're looking for criminal investigators here who are willing to follow the leads wherever they may lead. So people who would be willing to look and see who benefited from this crime, cui bono, who had the means to pull it off.
Somebody who has dived extensively into that question and handled the entire matter as a matter of an investigator trying to find a criminal is Michael Rupert, if anyone has ever heard of him. He wrote the book Crossing the Rubicon back in 2000, I believe, 5, and he also was doing dissertations on that with a lot of that evidence that you can find on YouTube called The Truth and Lies of 9/11 by Michael Rupert. We got 2 minutes before the break here, so I guess in closing, again, just your personal opinion and not speaking on behalf of architects and engineers, would it be fair to conclude that the government might have had something to do with this?
Well, it's clear once somebody answers the questions that we just raised, it becomes pretty clear that Al-Qaeda probably didn't have access to 3 of the most highly secure buildings outside the Pentagon, right? So we're talking about somebody with some greater reach, somebody with some capability to enact drills that took control of our air traffic controllers and confused them, that sent our Air Force jets in every direction, but leaving the eastern seaboard almost completely defenseless, that had the capability to delay defense and sending aircraft to intercept these jets and so forth. It's a deep crime that we want a full investigation of. We'll
Absolutely. So, all right, well, thank you very much, Richard Gage, for joining us. We are running up against the break. The website is ae911truth.org. And again, you can see the documentaries and the research that they have made on YouTube. The experts speak out, explosive evidence. Thank you very much again, Mr. Richard Gage.
You're so welcome, Mike.
With the criminals, messages subliminal, scribbling spills, spit.
Tired of living in a violent society? If every citizen was armed, no one would be dumb enough to shoot people. It's exactly the ethos our founding fathers had when they wrote the Constitution and then changed it, which is what makes it sacred now. Come mingle with safety-minded people like you at the Liberty City Gun Club. Our nation is still the world leader in one thing: armaments. Nothing says excitement like a night out with a small caliber semi-automatic weapon. Get social at the Liberty City Gun Club.
Well, yeah, it's getting tough out there. Yeah, no doubt. I work in home invasions, mostly. Some murder, occasional rape, if she's hot, or really bitchy. And I'm a huge advocate of gun control, absolutely. Every time I kick in a door or smash a window, I face the possibility of being shot and killed. Allowing citizens to own guns creates a hostile work environment for me and my associates. No one should have to work under those conditions. I say make them all illegal, absolutely. I mean, I break the law for a living. I'm a professional, so it doesn't really bother me. No doubt. No doubt.
Your local violent criminals work hard and put their lives on the line every time they attempt to murder, rape, abduct, or assault a member of the citizenry. They desperately need your help. With your support, there may finally come a day when a violent criminal can have his way with you or someone you love without the fear, anxiety, and stress caused by knowing there's a possibility his victim might be armed. Please show your support by voting for stronger anti-gun legislation, because criminals prefer unarmed citizens.
Hi, I'm Steve.
I'm Irene.
I'm Lisa.
My name is Tom.
I'm a graphic designer,
college freshman,
stay-at-home mom with a full-time job,
scholar on social policy, and a barista.
And I'm just like you.
I'm an Obama supporter.
I support President Obama.
But the president needs your help.
Our president can't launch into another war without you. And remember, we promise to support him no matter what.
Together, we can do it.
That's why we here at the Americans for Whatever Barack Obama Wants, Did You Know He's Friends with Jay-Z, have launched a Kickstarter campaign to fund World War III.
And America is dead-ass broke, so our goal is to raise $1.6 trillion on behalf of the U.S. government.
That's where you come in.
Even a small donation would make all the difference.
When I first saw the president speak in 2008, in a YouTube clip posted to my Facebook page, I knew he was going to be right all the time. So I support World War III and IV and any moon war the president may want to start.
I mean, there is no way that he or the cabal of corporate interests, spy agencies, and shadow bankers that tell him what to do would ever mislead us. A $25 donation will get you a piece of rubble from a war-torn Middle Eastern country kissed by Senator Lindsey Graham.
A $100 donation gets you a day pass to leave your local refugee camp.
You'll probably end up in a refugee camp, but it'll have free Wi-Fi.
So please, help us reach our goal of $1.6 trillion so we can make World War III a reality. Why? Because Obama.
Because Obama.
have a group or organization founded on the principles of personal liberty, health freedom, or accountable government? We invite you to check out Same Side Entertainment. Same Side is a source for activists and liberty organizations to connect with well-known leaders in today's growing movement for sustainable living, personal liberty, and sovereignty issues. Same Side has a variety of keynote speakers, debate panels, interactive web presentations, musicians, and liberty-based entertainment, as well as services for web design, graphic design, video, and photography. Same Side can help customize your event by connecting you to the best of the liberty and political world while staying within your budget. Get connected with leaders in the liberty movement like Tom Woods, Kevin Gutzman, Jack Hunter, Robert Scott Bell, Bob Murphy, Michael Scheuer, John Bush, Jordan Page, Tatiana Moroz, and many more. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and our website at www.samesideentertainment.com. Again, that's www.samesideentertainment.com. Same Side Entertainment, connecting you with the education and resources you need.
Thanks for listening to FPRN. Don't forget to check us out on Facebook and Twitter. If you'd like to start your own show with FPRN, advertise with us, or donate to the network or to your favorite shows, check out our website at www.fprnradio.com.